It's actually come back to bite me twice in the last 2 months, or like 6 weeks. And I've just decided to go back to contracts and just have a very clear understanding and agreement back and forth that's in black and white written. And so I wish we didn't have to do that, but I feel like there's some people are like, for the example, one guy worked with me for a month and got a tremendous amount of value. It's like, I need to stop right here.
Yeah.
And work on this before we continue. And I'm like, well, we've just scratched the surface. Like, we're not even anywhere near where you need to be to get where you say you want to go. We've just identified the initial things to move forward with.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need to stop right here.
Okay.
Do you do contracts or?
I actually don't.
Yeah.
And I have 3-year commitments to work with me. So that's a lot of time for someone to bail out. And my fail-safe is a really, really heavy interview process. So I want to work with people that I am certain are going to be in it for the long haul. And when I paint them a picture and I say, hey, the engagement's going to be this long, then they understand that I am kind of the producer of this thing in a way, and that my projection is the most accurate timeline. So for them to say, hey, a month is enough would never happen in my world, only because they are with me in the scope of the vision of whatever I map out the engagement to be, whether it's 12 months or 3 years or 2 days. So so much of the success of my business comes from a really meticulous front end conversation. And as they say, good decisions are a function of making bad decisions. So I can only say that, and I've only experienced the success that I have with that because I've done it the wrong way so many times in the past, that I learned from it and said, man, I keep essentially losing. I end up being the one on the losing side of this deal. If a client backs out of a contract, then that's not so bad for them, but that's not so great for you. So I said, I want this to be excellent all the way around. I want this to be excellent for everyone. What can I do? What is in my control that I can have intentionality over and have and put energy into to make sure that the deal goes exactly the way that I expect it to. And I just put a lot of energy into that front end conversation. And I'll be honest with you, Gene, what I got really good at was telling people no. At this point, I say no to more people than I say yes to. And that means that I turn down people who are like 99% a fit. And that's hard. I actually have a review written about me online, like a scam report, about how I'm such a bad guy because I told someone that I wasn't willing to work with them. And they would have paid me all the money up front. Like, that's a dream client in a lot of ways. But they just were not a fit. And it wasn't even that drastic of not a fit, but it was like in my world, 99% is the same as 0. And I'd encourage you to write that down if that feels relevant to you. 99% is the same as 0. My boxing coach used to say that to me. And so this guy was 99%. And there was just this one little piece that was off, but I knew that was the Achilles heel of this whole thing. And that one little thing had the potential to just ruin it. And the only way that I knew that is because I've said yes to 99% people in the past, and it bit me hard. And so I made a hard and fast rule that I only say yes to 100% people. And that means by default that I say no to a lot of people. And that's not like necessarily that kind of sounds cool in the coaching world. Like, I say no to more people than I say yes to. Aren't I so cool? Like, it's not about that at all. It's about, in my world, I am so hyper focused on getting excellent results for people that I go out of my way to protect the probability of that. Any metric, any part of that equation that I have control over, in regards to creating the highest probability of excellent results, I meticulously control. And so that's why I have the benefit, the luxury of not needing contracts, because I do such an amazing job on the front end of curating people.
Yeah.
That's the bottom
I
line.
could definitely think that I could have done a better job. There was one that came in really quick and was a good, seemed to be a good fit.
Yeah.
Obviously it wasn't. And this one recently, actually today, was supposed to kick off, and they just literally just put the brakes on everything. And I thought really good fit. I mean, I was super excited, and they were too. And then all of a sudden, I think they got scared.
Yeah.
And just said, let me just not step into this before we start.
Totally. That there's two parts to that. Sometimes there are people who just aren't a fit, that it could behoove you to look at that enrollment process to see, how can I tighten this up a little bit? How can I tighten this filtration process down so that I'm only saying yes to people that are 100%. That's part one. Part two is sometimes 100% people get scared and they get weird. And it doesn't mean that they're not a good fit. It means that front end conversation wasn't strong enough to catapult them out of their fear into action.
I will tell you, I listened to the replay of your enrollment conversation.
Uh-huh.
Is that the words you used? I can't remember.
Yeah.
My notes are here. Anyway, but so it worked great. Like my most recent client came in from that, and I changed my setup and did that. And it's actually the first person who came in from reading the book.
Cool. Oh, great.
So she read the book. So she had a good feel for who I am, and said, if there's any way we could work together, I'd love to do that. Right. So I set up a time for a week later, had the enrollment conversation, and went really well. And she said yes, but I didn't really explain to her what I offered, right? Because we don't really need to explain the details. The next morning, she's like, I really want to do this, but I'm not sure what I bought. And I said, well, why don't we get on another call and have another conversation just to go over the details and make sure it's 100% fit. And so she did. And so that one's sticking. And she's going to sign the agreement, because I do want to use an agreement, just at least just as a common way for us to move forward.
Sure.
But I know I need to get better with it. Like, I too accept my responsibility to have the kind of conversation that gets them engaged and gets them to see the vision and want to work with me. Yeah. But that's just a couple of things that happened recently.
Yeah. And listen, man, like, the enrollment process really is it's an art and a science. And I mean, dude, I've been doing this for 14 years. I've been having that conversation for a long time. And I can't even say that I've mastered it. I'm pretty damn good at it. But I'm still nuancing it, right? And so in the process of that world specific, because that world is so valuable. It's so valuable to be able to have this gift that you can bring to the world, and then have a skill set of being able to communicate that to someone who really needs it in a way that creates a union, a partnership. That is a highly valuable skill set. So that takes time to learn who you get to be in that conversation and how to nuance it, and really how to navigate it. It is an art and a science in so many ways. And so it sounds to me in a big way that you're just in that process of getting better at that game. And I would just encourage you to to, if you've done your absolute best in that conversation and someone still doesn't feel like 100%, to be willing to let them go. And if someone does feel like 100%, don't be afraid to kind of like push them a little further, because those 100, there's, in the enrollment conversation, I said the one thing in life that's absolutely the worst is when one person who's really awesome and another person who could really benefit from their magic, who should work together, somehow don't. That's the worst. Yeah. Well, that can happen when someone says yes, because they can say yes and then at the last minute freak out. And that is typically a function of that borrowed confidence, that borrowed certainty, maybe just not quite being there enough. So for the people that are 99%, don't be afraid to let them go. And for the people that are 100%, don't be afraid to push them a little more than maybe is comfortable, because there is a chance that that is required in order for them to get over that initial fear, because sometimes that logic sits in after they make the big, bold decision and they go, wait a minute, what did I just do? Oh my God. And they start to talk themselves out of it. And if there's enough of that momentum behind them, then they will follow through. And if there's not, then a lot of times they'll run for the hills. And that's the worst.
And I think that's what happened today with this client. You know, she actually said yes, and she made the first payment. And today was one of the things I do with people is do like a deep dive session in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so we were literally scheduled to do it today.
Right.
And she canceled yesterday. And I said, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I just scanned her email and I said, let's just get on a call and talk about it. And she didn't respond. So we talked about it today. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. And this did hurt my feelings. Like, this is a safe space, but she basically said, it was you. And I'm like, well, what did I do? And she goes, the way you responded to one of my emails of the last week. And I was like, I don't remember responding in a way that was, you know, she kind of came back and said, it made me feel like you were condescending to me.
Okay.
And I go back and look at it. Yeah. There's really nothing in there that could be construed as condescending. Like, sure. I mean, if you're really, really sensitive, I guess maybe you could.
Yeah.
But she's like, well, maybe we'll work together someday. And here's where I felt really good with my confidence and where I'm going with everything. I was just like, you know what? If you're not feeling right about this, then we don't need to move forward.
Yeah.
And you don't need to keep this open for someday.
Yeah.
Because if you're feeling weird about this right now, because here it is, I know I'm the person that can help you get what you want.
Yeah.
And I know what else is out there.
Yeah.
There's not many people that can do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel like this is a good fit, I mean, I don't want you to like think that you need to leave it open. So let's just kind of say, just agree to be friends. And it felt good to be able to say that, but it did hurt my feelings because
for sure.
She basically she found a reason to run.
Totally. So listen, here's the, I have encountered that more times than I can explain. So let me illuminate that in my experience for you. In my experience, that means one of two things. Either that the fear set in and they needed something to point at to validate their reason to run.
Yeah.
So like you said, you looked at the email, and I'd be willing to bet that you could, like under the right context, you could share that email with everyone in this group, and we could probably look at it and go, yeah, there's really nothing in there that's like.
Do you want me to share it with you?
Probably not, just because.
I will. I mean, it was only like a few lines.
Yeah. Yeah, you could if you want. But my point is this. You could probably share it with us, and most of us would probably be able to look at it and go, yeah, there's really nothing in there that's weird. That's, again, just like an objection is typically not really an objection. Like, I have to think about it or I don't have the money. Doesn't really usually mean that. It really means I'm afraid I don't trust myself.
Right.
Saying, hey, you were kind of condescending to me, that makes it about you and not them. Because obviously there's something weird going on with her. She's not trusting herself. She's not trusting you. But if she's not trusting you, but she doesn't have a reason not to, then there's something going on there, right? So obviously this thing about the email is just her kind of like easy way out.
Yeah.
And she's just not willing or able to go to a level of vulnerability with you where she can really lay out what's really going on.
I did ask her that too. And she's just like, want to put it back on me. And
Of course. Because like,
and
where else is it going to go? Like if she doesn't lead with that, then she's not going to like default to that.
yeah,
So that's part one. Part two is maybe she really is just super, super sensitive. Like maybe you did just say something that did kind of rub her the wrong way. And if that's the case, then like, that's not a client for you.
yeah,
Because your approach certainly is not for people who are that sensitive. So either way, I would say that, either way, it's either she's not a fit or she's not a fit because she wasn't at a place where she could own what was really going on with her and have a conversation with you about it. So
yeah. I don't want to take up too much of the time, but it was something that came up.
yeah,
And I think what you're talking about is do a little bit better job in the very beginning,
yeah.
so that I can really make sure that fit as well. So let me ask you a question around this. I went through the enrollment process, and it's very similar to what I've used before, but I just used your framework. And we got to the part where she goes, yeah, could we do this? And I talked about it. I gave her the pricing and everything. She goes, okay, it's a lot, but I want to do it.
Right.
And this is what I did, because I've learned this, was that I don't want you to make the decision today. I really want you to sleep on it. I don't want you to say, yes, she wants to do it, but I said, I just want you to just hold this. If you still feel the same way tomorrow, let's do this.
Great.
And then and this is not the same one, right? This is two different girls, just so we keep them separate. And so she was a little bit nervous. She's like, I don't know what I bought. So she sent me an email, and we got on the phone, later that afternoon, and I had a conversation with her, and she's like, oh, that totally makes sense. That makes, yep, let's do this. What's the next steps? And we scheduled dates, and I took credit cards and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do you do something else inside that sales process to solidify the vision? And
well, first of all, I never let people sleep on it or think about it.
okay.
Yeah, because the simple reason is two parts. First of all, in my work with people, I typically work with people at the speed of decision, of the speed of transformation, right? So I work with people that are in positions that it's critical for them to be able to decide and move forward, and decide and move forward, and decide and move forward. And so if they have a habit of getting to the point of decision and squatting, that's a bad habit. And it's my opportunity to help them break that in that moment.
Yeah.
In that enrollment call. Because when we do work, when it comes to like doing the impossible, there's no room for hesitation. There is, when it comes to playing the game in my world at the highest level, there is no room for hesitation. There is no room to think about it. There is no room to sleep on it. We move at the speed of transformation. And so that is not a habit that I indulge in, first of all. And like I said in the enrollment call, very often, if someone hasn't given themselves an opportunity to make a decision, then sometimes, even if they're a yes, that time and space allows their small self to creep in and talk themselves out of it. So that's not ideal for me either. Now, sometimes people do sleep on it and they wake up feeling the same and they go for it, and that's great. And if they have a habit of letting that small self delegate their decisions for the most part, then that time and space allows for them to talk themselves out of it. And so I typically don't want to promote that in any way. So I'm a big fan of getting people to make decisions rapidly, because A, it helps them potentially break any bad habit that they might have, and B, it's just congruent. It is just integrous with how we're going to be moving forward in the relationship. Does that make sense?
I mean, I set context to literally that was one of the issues, is making decisions.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just, in feeling the conversation, and she said, yes, I want to work with you. And I said, okay, great. this is what I want you to do. I want you to really check in with yourself to make that decision so that you're coming in 100%, not basically 99%.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give it completely up to you tomorrow. I'm not following up with you. It has to be all in your court. And I just make sure it's right. And I feel good about that with people because I don't want to be rushed. Right.
Yeah, totally.
And we all have these, and I want to make quick decisions too. I mean, I study hyper growth companies. One thing around hyper growth companies is they make quick decisions.
No doubt.
So I just was asking specifically around like making sure, how do you get them to really, in that enrollment conversation, it is about vision, but the way you described in the very beginning, like, I'm so meticulous about this, I'm so clear, and you were very, like, are you delaying that conversation over a couple of different conversations, or are you doing it all in one conversation?
All in one conversation. Yep. I have the entire conversation laid out. I do it in one sweep.
Okay.
Yep. Because again, these are people, and listen, this is not a blanket statement. I don't want all you guys to like run home and adopt this if it doesn't work for you, but the people that I work with at the level that they want to create impact in the world, it is necessary for them to make big, bold decisions on a regular basis. And so for me to create an environment, a context where they can do that as a catalyst into an ongoing relationship where they will be essentially required to do that on a constant basis, that is a big reason for why I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really, you may just play with that. And so I think this kind of dovetails nicely into the decisive decision-making conversation, because I think as leaders, all of us have the opportunity to become a bit more decisive in our decision-making. How many would agree that you could become more decisive in your decision-making? Okay, so I will share with you my, before I move on, Gene, do you feel pretty good with that, or is there anything else that I can answer for you?
No, I mean, I'm just going to keep working with the enrollment conversation. It felt really good. It's very similar to what I've done. But there was a few little nuances inside there that I'm going to do. And I felt really good about the offer I made at a good price point as far as what I was offering. And I'm excited to work with this new client. Like I'm really excited about what we can do together. And I'm excited that the book actually led to a client, which the book is only, if you guys don't know, the book is only 2 months old. So getting people to read books is a challenge in this day and age. And actually having someone take action from reading it and saying, if there's a way we could work together, like that was my dream. Right. I'd like for it to happen once a week or even more often.
That's great, man. That's great. Here, I'm proud of you, man. And I think that into the right hands is really the name of the game for you. So yeah, that's awesome, man. Just keep having conversations. And listen, here's the cool thing about the enrollment conversation. It's a game. You can play with it, right? It is an art and a science. So you get to tweak it and you get to bring your own color to it. And I might invite you to try encouraging people to make a decision on the spot rather than sleep on it, and just see how it goes. You might like that better. You might think that that's the worst thing you've ever done in your life. Either way,
I've played with it both ways, right? Sure. And I felt like in the moment that I needed to give her space to make the decision, like instead of rushing or doing all that. And I wanted her to be sure. Like it wasn't like I was perfectly comfortable. She said no.
Sure. Now here's the piece of that is your intuition is really critical in these conversations. So if you do get the sense that someone needs time, then that's okay. That's one thing. And the other side of that coin is sometimes people might feel like if you push them too much, they'll run. but that's your own fear, and it's inaccurate, because if you push them just enough, they'll jump.
Yeah.
Right. So I think sometimes we bring our own fears and our own limiting beliefs to the conversation, and we're like, oh, I don't know, I better not push this person, because if I do, something bad might happen. Well, that's an assumption. If I push this person, something good might happen. That's another way to think about it. And in my opinion, that is a more efficient way to think about it. So I'm not saying you're thinking about it in a right or wrong way. I'm just saying to include all these different pieces of the puzzle, because ultimately it just helps the probability of knocking the ball out of the park. And that's what I want for you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Cool, man. And you know, as you go along, and if you have any other questions about it, I'm always available. So just let me know.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So we've all kind of agreed that we can all get better at making decisive decisions. This has been something that served me so well. I explain to you guys the return on investment for building this habit. Is it safe to say, and I don't want you guys to just agree just to agree, so like this will be a conversation. Is it safe to say that for the most part, there is a fear of making decisive decisions comes with a fear of making the wrong decision? Is that real for some of you guys? Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. So here's the thing about making the wrong decision. The habit of being indecisive, write this down, please. The habit of being indecisive is more costly than making the wrong decision. I heard that, Ron. Does that resonate with you guys? Think about it. Let's get really, really real. Okay. If there's any moment for us to get fucking real in life, isn't it right now? Like, how could it be tomorrow? So let's seize this opportunity right now to get really real. Okay. I want you to think about how much it has cost you to be indecisive. Think about it. How much has it cost you to be indecisive? Think about all the ways that it's cost you. All the different parts of your life, relationships, business, health, personal happiness. Now, if you happen to have a piece of paper in front of you, I want you to write down in one word what it's cost you. And if you're willing to hold it up and show everybody. I'll write mine down. I don't even have a piece of paper, but I'll write it down and show you. This is what I determined that my indecisiveness was costing me. Everything, 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 everything. Yeah, money, confidence, self-acceptance, right? Yeah, following my dreams. Amazing. Indecisiveness is the biggest killer of dreams and realities that I know of. And again, I've been playing this game for a long time, and I enjoy the pursuit of mastery of this game. And I understand very clearly that indecision is such a killer. Now, I want you to, for a moment, just indulge me. Close your eyes and think about all the moments that you were indecisive. And what if you had been decisive? What if you had decided? How would your life be different? All the moments. Keep your eyes closed and really get into the feeling of, instead of being indecisive, you were bold and you were decisive. And open your eyes. How does that feel to be decisive? To go back to each of those moments and see how the reality would have played out. Well, I repeat the quote. Yes, help me out, guys. What's the quote?
Was it indecision is the biggest killer of hopes and dreams, or something else?
I'm not sure. The habit of being indecisive is more costly than making the wrong decision. There you go. What a team. You see, guys? What a team. Is that the one? Is that? I think so. Okay, cool. I think we got it. Yeah, either way. Oh, the second one. Cool. Okay, I think we got it. So, here is the thing. Indecisiveness is more costly than making the wrong decision. How many of you have ever made like a really bad decision before? Raise your hand. How many of you at the time of making the decision thought it was a good decision? You ever have any of those? Yeah. So what does that tell us? It tells us that we have no idea. Sometimes we're making what we think is a right idea or decision, and it turns out to be wrong. Sometimes we think things are going to be terrible and they work out okay. So it is by far this habit of indecision. And that habit, behavior is driven by what? Who's a good student? Behavior is driven by what? Unmute yourself and just say it if you want to. Identity.
Identity.
Yeah, Shannon. Absolutely. Behavior is driven by identity. So if indecision ultimately is an action, because that's what it is, then if we trace that all the way up the line, that is a behavior. What is the identity most likely that's attached to that? I don't trust myself. That's what indecision is at the core. I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself. Because the majority of our big decisions, who are they about? Are they about the rest of the world, or are they about us? That's right, Chelsea. They're about us. And so, yeah, of course there's decisions like, oh, can I trust this person, or can I trust whatever? But very, 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 very often, if you like super trust yourself, you trust other people, sometimes to a fault. But I would rather trust myself so much that I trust bad people and have to learn how to be a little more discerning than not trust myself. Do you get that? I'd rather trust someone who's a bad person because I trust myself so much than not trust myself. Does that sink in for you guys? That's huge. That's huge. So, like a rock, my man. So, the genesis of this is I trust myself. That is the identity. I trust myself. I trust myself. And I would take it a step further than that, which is like I accept myself. I accept myself, because if you make the wrong decision, so much of this comes from childhood, right? Like if we do bad things, then we're kind of labeled as bad. And we have this funky association, like if I'm bad, then I don't get love, right? How many have some type of version of that somewhere? Some type of experience of that? Yeah, totally. But how skewed is that, right? Unconditional love is unconditional. I'll tell you guys a story. My buddy Brandon, when he was a little kid, used to play baseball. And they had this big game one day. And he goes up to the plate. And he's from Texas. So this was like, in Texas, it's a big deal, you know, football, basket, any type of competition. Like there's a lot riding on it, even if you're like a little kid, which is kind of silly. So he gets up to the plate. There's a lot riding on this game. And he just breaks down because the pressure's too much. And he drops the bat and he starts crying. And here's this little boy just standing there crying. And his dad comes down from the bleachers. And he puts his arm around him and he says, "What's wrong, son?" And he says, "I'm really afraid of losing. Because I feel like if I lose, then you won't love me anymore." And even though his dad was like a super Texas, like, you know, you got to perform for your value kind of guy, he was smart. And he looked Brandon right in the eyes and he says, "Brandon," and he just had this deep love in his eyes. And he said, "We're going for ice cream either way." Because that was kind of like the thing, like if you did good, then you got ice cream, right? And so he just in that moment was so unwavering in his love. Like, it does not matter what you do. You can do good. You can strike out. It doesn't matter. We are going for ice cream either way. So much of our fear of making the wrong decision is that there's some connection to us. If I make the wrong decision, I'm bad. Right? Yeah, get in that feel, right? If I don't want to make the wrong decision because then that'll validate the fact that I don't trust myself and that I'm not good enough. So I don't even want to try. Well, what if you could do no wrong? What if we were going for ice cream either way? That's what it's about. It's about making fearless decisions because there is no repercussion. Yeah, you might make a bad decision and you might lose some money, or you might, you know, get frustrated, but that's life. Like, that's going to happen either way. But to disassociate from the identity of I'm bad because I made a bad decision. Oh, since I made a bad decision, that must mean I'm no good or I'm not worth it or whatever the story is. To just have this story of, no, man, I'm more than enough. And I accept myself. That means you can play life full out. And you can swing for the fences and you don't care if you strike out. So what if you started making decisions that way? What if you started making decisions like you couldn't fail? Because really, even if like you fail on paper, if you're good here, like if you accept yourself unconditionally, there's kind of not really such thing as failure. Like, the stakes aren't so high. You don't feel so bad about it. I think that's what allowed some of the greatest successful people in life to fail so much, is they were so resolved, they were so reconciled to themselves that they're like, whatever, here goes, try 10,099. I don't know, let's see how it goes. They weren't afraid because it wasn't connected to their worthiness. Does that make sense, guys? So this is like an opportunity for you to live life completely differently, to make decisive decisions. Have you ever made a decisive decision? Raise your hand. Does it feel good? Keep your hand up. Totally. So what if that's how you lived all the time? What if that was just the standard for how you played the game? What if every time you got up to the plate, you swung for the fences because you didn't care if you struck out? How cool is that? Yeah. So that's really like the name of the game. I came to the conclusion that I was afraid to make big, bold, decisive decisions because if I was wrong, then it was going to validate my insecurity. And then that would make me feel bad. And so I didn't want to feel bad. So I didn't even make the decision. If I avoided making the decision, then I was good. But I wasn't good because I was smart enough to know what I was missing out on, right? Just like I asked you guys, what does it cost you to be indecisive? You're not unaware of the cost. It's just a little more manageable because it's not such a front end blow. But we all know that it's not healthy, it's not helpful, it's not useful as far as us having the life that we really want. So yeah, that's the point. So here's how I practice this. There's a rugby team in New Zealand called the All Blacks, and they are the most winning sports team of all sport of all time, if you can imagine that. They are the most winning sports team of all sport of all time. That's pretty phenomenal. And one of the they wrote a book on them, if you're interested, called Legacy. Interesting. They wrote a book about them, and one of the main pillars of why they are so good is when they train, they overtrain. So no matter how fast they're going to have to run in an actual game, they run faster in training. No matter how much weight they're ever going to have to push in an actual game, they push more weight in training. So when they show up to the field, what is required of them is less than what they trained for. Does that make sense? So I created a habit called search and destroy, which is where I basically seek out opportunities to make decisions, big ones or small ones. It's actually all relative. There's a caveat to that I'll get to in a minute, but just the habit of making bold, rapid decisions. It could be like where you're going for dinner or what you're going to do next week or what your goals are next month. Just to be in the habit, to decide, hey, here's 5 things that I can decide on. I can decide just today what I'm going to wear, where I'm going to have lunch, this, that, and the other thing. Boom. To just treat that almost like a game. Where can I make decisions? Where can I exercise this ability to trust myself? Ooh. Now, what's cool about that is when you do it on a big scale or a small scale, you trust yourself. You exercise trusting yourself at the deepest level. Yes, you exercise making decisive decisions, and that's a good quality in my opinion, especially if you want to be a leader, especially if you want to create certain results in your life. I think that is a good habit to cultivate. But more importantly, in my opinion, you cultivate the habit of trusting yourself. I trust myself. Boom, make a decision. And even if it's the wrong decision, because you're so solid, then you can be like, oh, well, that blew up. I'm still good though. We're getting ice cream either way. So I don't know. Let's move on to the next decision. Like, how cool is that? You don't have to get hung up in the like, oh, I made a wrong decision. I'll never do that again. Like, you don't have to play that game. So my encouragement to you would be to seek out some decisions that you can make. Now, there's 2 types of decisions that you can make. These can be like fun ones that you just know that are going to be in your life either way. Like, you're going to have to figure out what you're going to wear tomorrow either way. You're going to have to figure out, like, if you're going to the gym, what kind of workout you're going to do. You're going to have to figure out where you're going to have dinner. You're going to have to, like, there's some very basic ones that even the most basic ones sometimes people are indecisive about. Like, I was indecisive even about the most simple shit. Like, I don't know, should I wear the white t-shirt or should I wear the black one? I don't know. I don't want to get it wrong. Like, as funny as that sounds, that was me. But then there's the ones that you've been avoiding. How many of you have at least one decision that you've been putting off that's a big one, right? That's like a game changer. It could be about business. It could be about relationship. It could be about spirituality. It could be about health. It could be about whatever. That's the one that I want you to pursue. I had a feeling before we got on this call today that we were going to arrive at you guys doing something bold. I just had that feeling. And now we're here. And so the idea is this. I want you to do both. The little easy ones, I want you to start with. But I want you to commit to, okay, that big one that I've been avoiding, I'm going to do. Because I trust myself enough. I am resolved enough that even if I royally fuck it up, it doesn't matter. I'm going for ice cream either way, right? Because in my opinion, making decisions and trusting yourself is more important. Trusting yourself to make a big decision is more important than making the decision itself. Like, whatever comes out of the decision, even if it's great, even if it's great, the symbolism, in my opinion, is more important. Do you guys get that? Like the exercising of that self-trust and that self-worth and that self-love and whatever you want to call it, in my opinion, is worth more than any other thing that you could get out of making your big, bold decision. And if the big, bold decision pays off, then it's just kind of a cool side effect of trusting yourself. That's pretty cool. So what if your whole life was just what if your whole life was just a series of you trusting yourself so much to make decisions and feeling so good in that moment, and then any beauty that came out of it was just bonus? How cool is that? Like, what if that was your life? Because I think we hinge so much of like, I hope this is a good decision because I can't trust myself in this moment, so I hope this thing pays off to make it worth it. It's not about the thing, it's about you. The thing just is a side effect. Do you guys get that? Like, we hinge so much of the promise on the thing to let ourselves off the hook. But it's us that we want to show up for at the end of the day, isn't it? So we get to be the one that we decide for. We are deciding for ourselves, with ourselves, if that makes sense. And so that big thing that you've kind of been putting off because maybe you've been afraid to make the leap, well, now if you trust yourself, most likely it's going to work out. Like, how many of you have ever been really scared but followed your heart? How about that? Been really scared and followed your heart. Keep your hand up if it worked out. You were really scared and you followed your heart and it worked out. 100%. What does that tell you? That the majority of the time, when you're scared but you follow your heart, it works. I have yet to hear someone tell me about an experience where they were scared to do something really big and bold, but it was in their heart to do it, and they did it, and it was a disaster. I have yet to hear that story. And even if it didn't work out initially, because it was in their heart, they didn't give up. They didn't associate with the failure, and they kept going, and eventually it worked out. Right? So it's kind of like, I want you to sink into this word of inevitability. It's kind of like, if you go for it and you trust yourself enough, then getting whatever it is that you're going for is inevitable. I love that word. There's no alternative. There's no like, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I hope it works out. Inevitable. I love that word because it's so certain. You don't have to wonder. How many of you would love to just know that any goal you set, you'll achieve? How about that? Yeah, well, there's your opportunity to just decide to just have it. Because you'll only not have it if you give up. Like, there's not been one story in history where if someone was willing to put in enough tries, they didn't get what they wanted. So, kind of cool. So if you guys want to like get into this now and you have like, beliefs or stories or things that you want to work with me on here real time, I'm happy to do it. How are we doing for time? Yeah. Otherwise, I think that's it. Like, does that feel pretty complete for you guys as far as, understanding the big picture of this idea of decisive decision-making, of what it's really about and what it can really afford you in life? Is that clear? Totally. Ron, did you raise your hand? Uh-oh, here we go. Someone has a question. Who's talking?
Oh, well, I don't know if Ron was going to say anything. He just shook his head no. I was just going to say, so I said that indecisiveness cost me my peace of mind. Because when I knew I was going to resign from my job 3 months before I put in my resignation, and I gave them 10 weeks notice. Yep. It was a very, very long resignation period. But I waffled on the decision for the longest time, and it gave me such anxiety that I couldn't breathe, and like it was literally all I talked about for like a solid 2 weeks. And then when I made the decision and I like knew, it was such a breath of fresh air, but I recognized like there's a lot of like medium or small decisions that I have not made, and I've just kind of sat on them like, is this the right opportunity? And I just need to go with my gut and be like, yes, opportunity, done, I'm doing that. Or like, no, don't like that, done. Like, but not, because it really is like, it takes up mental space. And then for me, just like enormous amounts of anxiety just sitting there and waffling on it.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Shannon. Here's the bottom line. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it to be indecisive. There is no payoff. Like we pretty much do things in life because there's some payoff, right? That's why we pretty much do everything. And we think indecisiveness is a good idea because it potentially saves us from some bad decision, but we experience hell either way. They say a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a hero only one. Indecisiveness is kind of cowardly, isn't it? It's like, should I make the decision? Should I not? Maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll be bad. You're really just being a coward to trusting yourself in that moment and jumping. And so you die 1,000 deaths the entire time you deliberate about it. It's just not worth it. So Shannon, I love that. Thank you. Yes, Bridget, let me unmute you. Hi.
Hi. I have like a comment that might be a question.
Okay.
Because like a lot of what you're talking about there is making the decision to do something. And this is like on the flip side, what I'm thinking about a lot at the moment is like decisiveness in letting go of things or stopping doing things.
Totally.
What like I actually just came from like a conversation with a friend of mine where one of the things I decided to do from that was like make that list of what are the things I have FOMO about that like I know I should just pull the trigger and like cancel that subscription or quit that group or like all these things. There's a lot of those things that I'm just kind of hesitating on because it feels too final or like
great.
I'm worried that like I'm closing off my options or something. So I guess maybe if there's a question from that, it's like,
sure.
I don't know, because I feel like it is the same thing.
It's
in a
exactly
way,
the same thing.
Yeah.
However, I'm glad that you brought it up. So I can speak to that because I have felt that way too. Like I experience all sides of this thing. So, so here's my 2 cents on that. Write this down, please. Whatever you say no to, whenever you say no to something, you say yes to something else. So Bridget, for example, if you say no to some subscription that you really don't need at this time, what are you saying yes to?
Having that income for something else.
Yeah, for sure. And probably having that mental bandwidth.
Yeah.
Should I have it? Should I not have it? Right? What about that group that you're in that really probably you don't need to be in anymore? What if you said no to that? What would you be saying yes to?
More time and possibly more confidence. Again, going back to trusting myself. Like I'm thinking of a coaching program I'm in.
Great.
Kind of like is an ongoing support thing that do I need to keep staying there and paying that monthly fee for it? It's like money and time, but also just in a way maybe preventing me from standing on my own 2 feet.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of, yeah.
There you go. That sounds like some real honesty to me. Right? That is a huge part of this whole thing is being really brutally honest of like, yes, I do want this big, bold thing and I'm willing to make the decision. No, I don't want this thing. Like sometimes it requires some guts to say no. And sometimes it requires some guts to say yes. It requires guts to be decisive, black or white, yes or no, right? But every time you say yes to something, you say no to something else and vice versa. And so that's the world that I'm telling you guys, my world has become so rich, and I mean that in the most broad sense of the definition, because of this decisiveness. And somehow, because I've been so black and white, my world has filled with color. Do you get it? And so saying no, and this is just my experience, because I had like little subscriptions that I really didn't want anymore, but I didn't like want to close the door on, or I had like people that I really didn't want to be connected to anymore, but I didn't want to like seem like a bad person or like all this stuff. And I finally just got really friggin' honest with myself. And I said, what do I want? Do I want that subscription or do I not? Just be honest. Yes or no? No. Okay. Boom. Let it go. Do I really want to be connected to that person, or do I just feel like it's a good idea? Yeah, I just like kind of think it's a good idea, but I really don't want it. Good. Right? That honesty, that level of honesty opened me up to so much freedom. And so it sounds like that's like what I would do if I were you is I would make a list of all these little things and just create a hit list, and one after the other, just go after it like fucking no other. Yeah. Is that good, Bridget? Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think that's maybe my action for this week. Like the bold, you were saying, like, what's the thing that you can kind of act on?
Yeah.
So maybe that's like, no, I'm not going to say maybe. That's the thing I'm going to do this week.
Great. And listen, that's beautiful. Did you guys catch what she did? She heard her language and she shifted it in the moment. That's bold. Congratulations. I love that. Thank you. Deanna, yes.
My question kind of is a follow-up from that in regards to something you just spoke to. I see the emotion that comes up when I'm in fear of decision-making. I know that I've got a big people pleaser, fear of pissing someone off, fear of them not liking me if I say something or do something. And that's one of the things that has held me back, and why I said money, because I know it's in my business of being vulnerable, of saying things that I know, like, that I stand for, that other people are going to stand against. And I know, hi team, I know that's a huge piece of being a leader, and I know that's an inevitable part of standing, but I don't know yet how to really address or cope with
Totally. I feel like I have a perfect solution for you. Because I was the same way. Surprise. Manipulation is what it is at the highest level. Yes. I care so much about what you think that I am going to manipulate myself and what I say and how I act so that I elicit a certain response from you. Yeah. That's not cool.
Yeah. I've said that to my clients and yet I'm guilty of it.
Right. 100%. So in your world, what is the opposite of manipulation?
Acceptance. Totally.
So I accept myself and I accept other people's experience of me. You know who's really good at that? Kanye West.
Yeah.
Kanye's like, maybe you like my music, maybe you hate my music. I don't care. Like, here's the thing. I'm going to go on a rant about this just for a second. We live in a culture right now that's all about, I don't care what people think. I don't care what people think. But it's false. Like, if we're really honest, we're all just little kids inside that really do care what people think. Here's the thing. It's important to care what people think, but it's important also not to care so much that we manipulate what people think, right? If people don't like my work and they tell me that, I'm like, shit, man, that's rough. Like, I'm not going to lie. I feel, right? I'm not a ruthless savage like most people are trying to pretend to be.
You just play one on TV.
Yeah, that's right. I just look like one. But the truth is we all have a heart. We all care what people think. The only difference is to just not let it affect you. So give people the freedom to have their own experience of you. Mm-hmm. You are like art. You're like a piece of art. Some people might experience you and think you're the most beautiful thing in the world. And some people might experience you and that's just not their flavor. Mm-hmm. Give them that permission. Give them that freedom to just experience you one way or the other. When people say, Shannon, I absolutely love you, man. I think you're the shit. I'm like, oh, cool. And when people are like, dude, I'm really not down with your style. You're kind of like not cool. I'm like, whoa, man. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, I do care what people think, but I don't let it stop me. I'm like, if people are like, oh, I don't like you, I'm like, oh man, but I keep moving forward. And I also don't pause and like try to be like, well, wait, like, but if I do this, like, what do you think now? Like, don't you like me now? Like, I don't try to change their mind. I just let them have their own experience. And I feel whatever their experience of me is, but I don't let it stop me. So it's a two-way street. I let you have your own experience, and I continue on with my own experience. I don't let how you feel about me change my experience. I let it change how I feel because I'm real. I just have a heart. That's just how it is, right? I'm an artist at the end of the day. I think we all are. That's the difference, right? So it's not about being a ruthless savage where it's like, I don't care what anyone thinks. It's like, no, I do care. And I'm going to let you have your own experience, and I'm going to have mine.
This is helpful because, I've heard what you think of me is none of my business. And I've heard, one of my favorite quotes by Byron Katie, when I walk into a room, I know that everyone in it loves me. I just don't expect them to realize it. I got that all on some intellectual level. Yeah. And yet I didn't know how to implement a practice of that. And so what you said that really stuck for me is accept other people's experience of me, allow them, give them freedom and permission. Like that gives me something to do about it. Right? Because like before it was just like, how do I just let that go? Because letting go is much harder for me than doing, like removing something is harder for me than implementing something better or something different.
Yeah.
So this helps me implement a new strategy of, okay, well, what can I do about that? I can stand in that place of acceptance. Like that was such a key piece. What's the opposite of manipulation? Acceptance. Yes. Like that's the part I was missing. Being acceptance of people's, I mean, like I wouldn't argue with someone if they like chocolate ice cream and I don't. Yeah. Like, so why would I argue whether or not they like me?
Right. And like, it's so, I think that so much of the time we care so much about what people think, not because we genuinely care what they think, because our own abandoned heart is in the way. So I want you to validate me. I want you to give me love because I'm not super good at giving it to myself. If I'm super good at giving it to myself, then it doesn't matter if I get it from you, but that doesn't mean it's not bad if I get it from you. Like if I'm super good at loving myself, but you give me love, I'm not going to turn it away. I'll like bring it on. But it means if you don't love me, I'm okay. That's the difference.
I like that. If you don't love me, I'm okay.
Yeah, if you don't, I'm good. Like Kanye's good either way. Like Kanye's going to be okay either way. And if
he's not afraid he's not going to make money if people don't like him either. And that's a huge, like some of this about money is like, oh, I mean, I understand like narrowing down on your niches can be really rewarding if you focus on your ideal client.
Yeah.
And it's like so many people are so afraid of saying no to clients and saying no to people because they think that there's a fear of money, but in reality, it's the opposite. Like when you really get clear that Kanye's not really looking to please people that don't want to hear his music.
Kanye's only looking to please Kanye.
And yeah, I was just going to say, he's not really looking to please the people who do listen to his music either.
If people love him, that's great, but he's just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's what being an artist is. That's what life is about. It's like, hey, I'm just going to express myself at the fullest level of my expression in my coaching and how I just show up in life, just period. And the people that love that with abandon, great, come on board because there's plenty more. And if not, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to keep doing my thing.
And what's even more powerful about that too, that I'm just realizing now is it's not only what he's creating as an artist, but it's also who he's being that's inspiring people because people are inspired by people who don't care what other people think. So even people like Eminem, for example, like I don't really care much about his music, but I respect how he's been able to do what he's done and how he stood for himself in all of his, trials and tribulations. So like I can respect, like I appreciate who he shows up as an artist, even if I don't care about his music that much.
Totally. That's the point. That's the point. Kanye says, I don't care if you like my music. It makes you feel something.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hate my music, at least you feel hate. At least you feel something. Because most people are just kind of like, don't feel anything. Most people day to day are just kind of meh. So if you hear some Kanye music and you hate it, great. You felt something. Like he's attached and detached. It's in my world, it's what I call involved detachment. I am involved in this thing called life with you. I'm involved. We're in it together. And I'm detached whether you care or not. So I'm with it. And if you love it, great. And if you hate it, great. I'm involved and I'm detached.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That really cleared up a lot for me.
Was that good for you guys or what? Is that a rant, like everyone trying to be a ruthless savage these days? I don't care what people think. It's like, come on, man. Like, we care. Don't lie. Like, we care. You just don't want your little inner abandoned child to feel bad. That's all. So just go up for that guy or gal, and you're good.
I actually feel like that creates more disconnect. Like, I was going to write down money and then connection.
Listen, I thought of this morning. What if, like, you guys all came to Santa Barbara and we all got together and we were going to have a conversation, and I was like, okay, before we get started, I just want you to know that I don't care what any of you think. Like, how would you guys feel about that? Like, would that be cool? No. You know, like you go to a party and it's like, oh, hey, man, haven't seen you for a while. Before we get into this, I don't care at all what you think. Okay, let's get going. Like, what? It doesn't make any sense. So, like, this whole, like, ruthless savage trying to not care what people think is like, it's not even based on anything that makes sense at all. So obviously I've been putting some thought into this recently, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, yeah, of course I care, and I'm still going to let people have their own experience, and I'm going to have my own experience, but I care. That's the difference. So it's just kind of funny to me. Yeah, that's right, Bridget. It's not about disconnecting. It's just about not being connected to, like, allowing them to delegate your experience. That's all. You can still, that's what I mean by you're involved, but you're not disconnected from their heart. I care whether you like me or not, but I'm not gonna let that change what I do next. That's all. Totally different way to look at it. I think it's more real, don't you? Totally. Awesome, guys. Thanks for joining me on that little rant. That was fun. Any other questions, guys, before we go? I realize we're not too bad. But yeah, we're coming up on the witching hour here. I'm going to turn into a pumpkin shortly. Any other questions, thoughts, rants? Anyone have a rant? Who else wants to go on a rant? No? Good? Okay. Well, that was a stellar call today, guys. Good work. Lewis, you're very stoic. I love your presence. Thanks for being on the call here today. We've missed you, my friend. Cool, guys. Well, hey, as always, I hope you have a great weekend. We did some really awesome stuff here, guys. And I want you to take today's call really seriously, because this decisive decision-making is so powerful. I mean, it's just afforded me all the things in life that I want. And I don't mean just things, like to be, to do, to have, to feel, to give, the things that I really want in life. This decisiveness has allowed me to do that. And then this thing about, caring what people think, but also being detached, has allowed me to return to my humanness and allowed me to be more of an artist and not have to manipulate people and just to get them to say yes to my work or to see me a certain way, to just kind of let go of all of that burden of trying to, like, manage all of that and just be cool either way. So I see that as a big growth opportunity for you guys too. So thanks for being here today. And I'll look forward to jamming with you guys next week. I hope you have an awesome weekend. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.